Hitman has always been a unique video game series, bringing a blend of stealth and puzzle elements to a world full of secret conspiracies and tongue-in-cheek humor. Later games in the series lacked the charm and focus of the originals, but the 2016 reboot shoved Agent 47 back into the limelight with some of the most fun and satisfying assassinations that the series has ever had. 2 years on, and we have Hitman 2, looking to cement the series' return to form. So the question is, how does it hold up? At a glance, Hitman 2 is strikingly similar to the reboot that preceded it, in terms of its overall presentation at least. This isn't a bad thing, as the game still looks and sounds excellent, but folks looking for a drastic improvement over the original are going to be mildly disappointed. Hitman 2 still looks fine, with its slick lighting effects, varied locales, and occasionally massive crowds of people, which the game handles smoothly by the way, but there really isn't a lot to talk about in terms of sheer improvements. The only real thing that comes to mind is the addition of a picture-in-picture camera, for when bodies are found or key characters are performing certain actions, but otherwise, yeah, it looks about as good as the last one did, maybe slightly better. The game's audio is similarly fine, with little to distinguish it from the 2016 reboot. I've found that the voice work for crowds found in non-American locations is a little more varied this time around, but otherwise, you could honestly look and listen to 10 minutes of someone playing this game and never realize that you're watching them play the sequel to Hitman 2016. But again, that's fine. The game looks great, the soundtrack is fittingly subtle until you do your victory lap on the way to the exit post-murder, and 47's voice work is as dry and sardonic as usual, adding to the game's inherent sense of dark humor. As far as the story goes, Hitman 2 picks up immediately where the reboot left off, with Agent 47 and his handler hunting down the Shadow Client, a mysterious figure who manipulated them into taking down key members of an Illuminati-style secret organization in the previous game. The Hitman franchise is no stranger to secret conspiracies, the least of which revolve around Agent 47 himself, and this one is no different. In fact, the driving force behind 47 actually taking these hits on is the promise of information, specifically information pertaining to his shadowy origin. The overarching plot isn't anything incredibly new, but it was intriguing enough to keep me hooked between missions, despite the use of some underwhelming still cinematics to convey the plot. More interesting are the many subplots found within each of the game's individual missions. Each target has a number of minor plots happening around them, and part of the fun of the game is wandering around and stumbling into one of these plots that you can potentially use to your advantage when the time arises. If I had to complain about anything story-wise, it would be that the game sort of ends on a cliffhanger, and it's very much baiting for a sequel. I feel like the plot could have been wrapped up nicely here, but as it stands, it just feels sort of short. But as I said, the individual target subplots are far more interesting, and as with all entries in this series, Hitman 2 shines most in its gameplay. Once again, the series provides some surprisingly large sandboxes filled with numerous tools to turn into weapons, bystanders to assume the identities of, and events to use to your advantage. At its most basic level, Hitman 2 is mechanically friendly and allows for a surprising level of maneuverability and interaction within the locations on offer. As such, you have a number of options on hand for accomplishing your mission. Most areas have a number of different entrances, ranging from those that require disguises, or special credentials, keys, and lockpicks, or just some creative climbing, and when it comes to actually dispatching your target, the possibilities are practically endless. In a single hit, you could use a weapon that you picked up on site, push your target off a ledge, poison them, drown them, drop a heavy object on them, or use one of the many scripted events in a stage to finish off the job. The opportunities are vast, and while there are plenty that are obvious, it feels like there are just as many that require a bit more thought and creativity. Working out how exactly you fit this flamingo costume into a seamless assassination is all part of the fun, and there's no shortage of murder-based puzzles on offer. On that note, using any of the scripted events can be made much more simple by tracking the mission's story, which marks mission-crucial elements on screen as they become relevant. While series veterans may look at this as too guided, considering the sheer size and complexity of some of the maps, having this as an option is appreciated, especially on repeat attempts at each mission. But no matter how many options the game gives you, Hitman 2 wouldn't be half the game that it is if its stealth elements didn't work half as well as they do. Like any satisfying stealth game, enemy AI doesn't immediately become alerted to your presence, and the game does a solid job of conveying guard suspicion without being too overt. On top of that, dealing with an alert witness before everyone in the level is onto you is easy enough, and the way disguises can be compromised without making a level totally unplayable is a nice and logical touch. Of course, Hitman 2016 laid the groundwork for all of this, and Hitman 2's biggest addition to the stealth seems to simply be in the form of more responsive enemy AI. Guards who catch a glimpse of you when you're trespassing are a little quicker to investigate, from my experience at least, and having someone notice you via a reflection in a mirror for the first time can be very surprising indeed. On top of its polished stealth gameplay and massive opportunity-filled levels, Hitman 2 provides a fantastic reason to come back to each mission time and time again, thanks to the level of customization unlocked by leveling up your mission mastery. You accomplish this by completing challenges in each map, some of which restrict you to certain gear or simply task you with killing your targets in specific ways. Mission stories will often reward players with a lot of mission XP, while plenty of the smaller challenges hint at the more difficult to achieve assassinations. All in all, there's a lot of replay value to be found here. Hitman 2 may not be a huge improvement over its predecessor, but even if it didn't have the slight tweaks to its AI and larger levels that it does, it would still, at the very least, be more Hitman 2016. And that's far from a bad thing. But as it stands, Hitman 2 does have these admittedly subtle improvements, which I guess makes it a better game, right? With that said, Hitman 2 is excellent. Whether 2016 reboot was a return to form for the franchise, Hitman 2 is very literally just more of a good thing. The level of variety on offer paired with the game's excellent stealth mechanics and otherwise easy to use contextual mechanics makes for a fun and satisfying experience overall. Fans of the last game should definitely check this out, and if you're new to the Hitman series, then there's no better time to jump in.